Did you know that Jason Momoa directed a movie by the name of Road to Paloma, a drama thriller in 2014? Have you ever heard of Lost River, the fantasy thriller film that Ryan Gosling directed in that same year? I'm guessing the answer to both questions is a clear and resounding no, because the fact of the matter is that successful actors venturing into directing doesn't tend to go well. More often than not, the film ends up being a vanity project and a humbling reminder that just because you're good at one thing, that doesn't mean you're good at everything. Yet every now and then, you get something that stands out from the rest of the crop. Just last year, Creed 3 was a surprising artistic growth from Michael B. Jordan, which signaled a promising future career behind the camera. Then there's Lady Bird, in which Greta Gerwig came out swinging with nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. Yet most debuts from actors turned directors tend to be quite small in scale, an opportunity for the actor to cut their teeth into something smaller in terms of scope and budget. Take Olivia Wilde's Booksmart for example. A high school comedy film made only with a budget of $6 million. So not only was I surprised that Dev Patel, far from an A-list Hollywood actor, would be making his directorial debut, I was doubly surprised because of how ambitious the whole thing seemed on the surface. A high-octane Enter the Dragon inspired action thriller as your first film, and it looks this good? I'm more than intrigued. I'm flat out dying to watch it. The movie Monkey Man is an action thriller about an underground fighter who seeks revenge on corrupt leaders who burned down his village and killed his mother. It's based on an idea that Dev Patel himself came up with and started scripting. One pandemic, a broken arm, a broken foot, a bunch of broken equipment, and one Jordan Peele cosign later, and the movie is finally out. And how is it? It's pretty good, but quite flawed. An impressive showcase for Patel as a director, but one that will leave you less satisfied and more excited about his future as a filmmaker. This is an action film first and foremost, so the most important thing to nail is the action, which this movie definitely does. I've heard a lot of people complain about the shaky cam, but I personally thought it was used in a way that imbued the action with a frenetic, chaotic sense of energy while still being visually clear. This movie has been compared quite a lot to John Wick, and while it doesn't reach the heights of the action in those films, particularly the fourth installment, I thought the action was somehow even more raw, gruesome, and genuinely messy. Patel said in an interview that he really wanted each fight to feel primal, with each action scene feeling like a fight for survival, and if the tagline "Revenge is primal" doesn't give it away, the movie certainly treats this idea very seriously. He fights with the desperation of a caged animal, leading to some thrilling, rough, and gritty action sequences. The film also used the first-person POV during some of the action, which not only did I greatly enjoy, I was impressed by how seamless he was able to transition from first-person to third POV, to the point where the line between one and the other becomes blurred. It's rare enough to find yourself genuinely impressed by an action sequence in a movie, but it's even rarer that I would describe them as genuinely satisfying, which the action sequences in this movie certainly are. Before the action kicks into gear, we spend a lot of time establishing just how mentally beaten down and frustrated Patel's character is at the people responsible for his mother's death who continue to inflict injustice on this city. And beyond getting you to logically understand this frustration, the movie truly gets you to feel it, so that when he starts seeking the vengeance he's been working toward for most of the film, you find yourself wanting to scream, "Hell yeah, you get that vengeance you deserve." And whenever he drives a knife into the throat of someone standing in the way of his vengeance, it's genuinely cathartic. Though Patel does a fantastic job with the action sequences from a directorial standpoint, he does equally as good of a job from an acting standpoint. His facial expressions, the visceral physical nature of his performance just sell this idea of a caged animal in fight or flight mode. It helps that he's handsome as hell with exquisite hair, so he certainly looks the part of an action hero, and I kept on thinking about that one time this dude intervened to break up a knife fight, and I kept on thinking to myself, Yup, I totally believe this guy would rise up to the challenge and fight his way toward vengeance and justice. In terms of the rest of the cast, I want to specifically give praise to Sabita Dulapala, who brought a lot of grace to what could have otherwise been a damsel in distress stereotype of a character, and Ashwina Kalsika, who plays Kid's mother, and plays her with such warmth and maternal energy that you manage to care for her within mere moments of the film. Alright, now let's talk about what didn't work in this movie, and those are mainly writing focused. This movie is a structural and pacing mess. It takes about 40 minutes for the inciting incident to happen, which isn't necessarily a problem considering the setup is pretty good, but when you're gonna make an action movie which spends its first act setting up the action, when you decide to go into full gear, you gotta really go into full gear. Instead, we get a self-proclaimed action movie which spends the first 40 minutes doing setup, then gives us 15 or so minutes of action, then spends the next 35 minutes grinding to a halt for flashbacks and training, and then gives us 15 minutes or so of action until the credits roll. The movie is never fully able to take off, and you end up feeling like you barely got any action, with the best parts being shown in the trailer, which isn't what you want people saying about your action movie. Despite all the actors doing a decent enough job, I thought the character work was pretty shoddy. All the antagonists are cartoonishly one-dimensional, which isn't necessarily a problem if you imbue them with a sense of personality to make them cartoonishly entertaining, which this movie never does. By the time the movie ends, you won't remember a single line any of the antagonists say, just that they're bad guys. Come to think of it, I can't remember any of the antagonists talking, period. Which isn't to say that they didn't, just that whatever they said was likely the most forgettable thing imaginable. Even the John Wick films had Common and Ruby Rose as characters, which end up being fun antagonistic forces. But every bad guy in this movie is as forgettable as an Arkham henchman. Then there's Vipin Sharma as Alpha, a desperate attempt at a token comic relief character, despite the fact that his lines are less funny and more obnoxious. Overall, this is a solid action film that proves to be a great showcase for Patel as a director and action star. The action is genuinely thrilling and cathartic, the movie has enough social commentary to give it a leg up over most action movies, and there are a few great performances, but the movie's structural and pacing issues leaves us with way too much setup and way too little payoff. It's less successful as a great individual cinematic experience and more impressive as a promise of the great director that Dev Patel could grow into in the future. I'm giving this a 7.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please give us a like and subscribe, and if you've watched Monkey Man, let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.